Singapore has some of the smartest students in the world.
How many units for durians? 14. Excellent.
How do they do it?
Finish.
The secret lies with the way we teach.
But is there a hidden cost to excellence?
I was diagnosed with depression and anxiety. So school was something I struggled with a lot.
Tonight I have to do English paper and math paper.
How long will that take you?
Around 2 hours.
If you had a wish where you could do one thing a bit more each day, what would that be?
More sleep.
101 East goes back to school to find out why Singapore's students are top of the class and the price they're willing to pay for success.
Singapore tops international leaderboards when it comes to learning.
So I'm here in a Singaporean tuition class and I'm about to find out whether I'm smarter than a 9-year-old Singaporean student. I can tell you I am not confident at all.
Okay, so 3/5 is the same as how many then?
This question might have many adults scratching their heads. But for these Year 3 students, it's child's play.
Ready, set, go.
Finish. Finish.
Done.
Done.
No.
Still continue to do?
You didn't draw them.
You didn't
Yeah. I feel like I've missed a fundamental, something fundamental's missing, and mine doesn't have as many boxes as the other kids.
The approach these kids are using is called modelling, and it's just one of the unique methods of learning built into their curriculum.
I'm getting a little bit of a taste of just how competitive the Singaporean education system is. I'm falling way behind my peers, and the pressure is real.
I'm here to find out exactly what it is about the Singaporean school system and the culture that generates such smart kids.
Hi,
Janice.
Good to see you. Janice Peterson, lovely to meet you.
I'm meeting one of the key architects of the mathematics curriculum for the Ministry of Education.
Singapore's developed a reputation as having the best education system in the world. How did that come about?
Well, education has always been allocated the second highest budget. With a small nation that has no agriculture, very small land, no natural resources, we can only invest on the mass of the size of a fist that is in the head, which is the brain.
A program of educational expansion with its accent on science and technology is vital to maintain and improve the living standards of the people of Singapore.
Founding father Lee Kuan Yew transformed the country from poverty to prosperity in a single generation by focusing on its human resources. Lou May says the government has always invested heavily in education.
Right from decolonization days in the 60s, we need to build people with skills who can work in the factories, who can work in the offices, and a large part of investment has been put into education.
It's always been about long-term social and economic planning.
As educators, we are not educating our children for today, not for tomorrow. We are educating them for the future economy in 20 years' time. And that's pretty much what the Ministry of Education has to do often, to look into the crystal ball to what is necessary and what is needed for the future generation.
I'm on my way to a class where the focus is very much on learning for the future.
It's Saturday morning here in Singapore and these 4-year-olds are attending robotics class.
The little ones experience maths through play.
It selects either this area or this area.
But the older kids are here expanding their maths comprehension in preparation for the big national exam that takes place at the end of Year 6, called the PSLEs.
How do you feel about coming here on a Saturday morning?
I'm usually quite excited to come as I will want to do a lot of building and programming.
So tracking the line, first line, second line.
A student's PSLE score determines which secondary school they'll go into. High scorers qualify for the top academic schools, while low scorers find themselves in schools geared towards vocational training. This system of streaming can put a lot of pressure on kids and their families.
Okay, understand?
Echo. Stop.
One of Singapore's best and brightest is about to start his day.
Stop.
12-year-old Ishan is in full throttle PSLE preparation mode.
Morning.
A routine that starts at the crack of dawn.
So Ishan will normally wake up around 6:40, 6:45. After that, she eat breakfast.
This has not been marked, you know.
No, thank you.
Let me see how many marks you have for your compo. 9 out of 15? Wow, that's quite a lot of mistake, right? Why did you start with A? Okay, we'll go through when you come back.
Then around 7 o'clock, I will then fetch him to school,
You got everything?
drop him off.
Wait for me. Okay.
Bye.
Bye. Have a great day. School ends about 1:30.
Hello.
He will be back home by about 1:45.
What are you watching? What happens when you die?
You have to take a quick lunch before we rush him down to his science tuition that starts at 2:30. Science tuition ends at 4:30. And then we have to rush him down to his usual drama class from 5 to 7.
Okay, boys, warm up. Please roll your lip.
Let's have dinner.
Thank you, this looks great.
After a quick family meal, it's more studying.
Tonight I have to do English paper and also math paper.
How long will that take you?
Around 2 hours for all of them to combine.
And then what about these ones here?
This is extra study, so if I am free, I can do them for extra revision.
Okay, but it's getting late already, so you probably don't have time for those. Why are the PSLE exams such a big deal?
So it's really frightening, so everyone wants to move on to a good school to get a better job, and it is worthwhile for the long run. I can see a lot of my friends like scrambling, doing work, and say they don't have any time to play.
Where do you think that pressure comes from?
I think it comes from our teachers, friends, family, and it can get very stressful when everyone is looking at you, thinking that you can score really well.
And if you had a wish where you could do one thing a bit more each day, what would that be?
More sleep.
So when does he wrap up? When's sleep time?
So sleep time is around 10:45 to 11. Wow. Yeah, that's quite normal for a Singapore kid.
Supporting a child's education is like a second job for many Singaporean parents, and Mum Janice and Dad Tian are no exception.
Guess it's our way of life. We have a full-time job. When we come back, we still have to make sure that we look through the children's work and to help them to the best of our ability.
This way of life is deeply rooted in Singaporean parenting, and it's called kiasu.
Can you tell me what a kiasu parent is?
It's
Afraid.
Chinese dialect, yeah.
It's a Chinese side.
Afraid
Afraid
to
to
lose.
lose. So when it comes to our children, when we say that we are kiasu parents, it has a negative connotation. It usually refers to parents that go all out to push their children, regardless of whether the children is stressed or not, to go for the best in terms of everything. They are afraid to lose at the expense of their children's health, their children's mental state, stress level.
If you take a step back though, do you think the balance is right?
That's a good question. Balance between work and play. I would say that there is a season for everything. So I would say that right now the balance is a bit off. You just have to suffer a little bit more, you know, and think of the bigger gain again at the end of the examination. Okay, a truck carried some fruits. 2/7 of the fruits are durians. Okay, how many likes durians?
Stinks.
It stinks? Come on, are you Singaporeans?
I eat all kind of food.
Yeah, okay. So
To prepare for their big exams, 70% of kids here attend after-school tuition classes. These 12-year-olds are learning advanced algebra.
Okay, tell me, how many units for durians? 14. Excellent.
Leading today's class is Ishan's mum, Janice. She's a former school teacher and now owns one of Singapore's largest maths tuition companies.
So what's the secret then to the success of Singapore's education system?
I personally felt that the secret lies with the way we teach in Singapore, which moves away from rote learning to more critical thinking.
If the education system here in Singapore is so well planned and thought out, why is tuition necessary?
So one of the key principles in our Singapore education is leave the bottom but not cap the top. So in line with this principle, I feel that the tuition industry plays a supportive role. Tuition centres are privately owned. They can cater their curriculum to differentiated learning levels. If I have a weaker students, I can actually offer tuition on a one-to-one basis to help the child bridge certain learning gaps. If I have a stronger students learning in a group, we can help them achieve their fullest potential. Here is our wall of testimonials. It shows that our students truly improved after they have attended our lessons.
I see. Look at it's A plus.
Yes.
Wow.
Would you want to send your kid here?
Well, it sounds like you're getting the results, Janice.
Yeah. And of course we have.
But in this tuition centre, kids aren't the only ones going to school.
Do some of the parents sit in on the class?
We actually have a debrief session for parents after lessons like what you can see here. It takes a village to raise a child. So they are going in to listen to what the teacher has taught for the day and how they can go back to assist their children further.
So that's a bit of pressure on the parents as well.
Of course. It's pressure everywhere. It's a competition.
I'm interested to find out more about what's at stake in this competition. So I'm visiting a Singaporean high school. If kids score low in their PSLEs, they might end up at a school like this one, with a focus on vocational training. Students here are prepping for jobs in the retail or hospitality industries. Many of the 12-year-olds sitting for their PSLEs and their parents would consider placement in a school like this a failure. This is because of the stigma around non-academic pathways. But 14-year-old Ria has a different take on it.
This looks like a cafe to me, but we're actually at school, aren't we?
Yeah, we are. It's a retail cafe.
Okay.
Where we come in for retail lessons and practice coffee from our teacher, Mr. Zack, over there.
Okay.
Yeah. My experience with PSLE wasn't very well. I'll get teased and I just didn't want to be in such an environment.
Sure.
Yeah.
But that test is quite important, isn't it?
Yeah, it's quite important. But I went for the test, but I didn't do well. But look where it brought me.
Do you feel like you've found your enjoyment of learning again?
Definitely. Yeah, I enjoy coming to school. I don't dread it as much as I used to.
Okay.
I really enjoy coming to see my teachers, having my lessons in such an environment.
Being placed in the vocational stream took the pressure off Ria and allowed her to re-examine what she wants out of her education. This school is part of the moving landscape of education in Singapore, shifting focus to preparing students for jobs in the real world. As Singapore continues to excel at education, how do other countries in the region like Australia stack up? The World Cup of Academics is the PISA study, the program for international student assessment. In 2015, Singapore was the top of the leaderboard across 3 subjects: maths, reading and science. In comparison, Australia came out significantly lower, coming 25th in maths, 16th in reading and 14th in science, well behind other OECD nations like Estonia, Poland and New Zealand. So how has Singapore climbed to the top, especially in vital STEM subjects, while countries like Australia continue to fall behind? In Singapore, students are taught by specialised maths teachers from Year 3 onwards. But in Australia, specialised teaching doesn't start until high school. And there's a chronic shortage of maths teachers. In fact, less than 1 in 4 high school kids in Australia are actually taught by a qualified maths teacher. So, what can nations like Australia do to catch up? To find out, some of Australia's best teachers have come to Singapore to see exactly what makes its school system the best in the world. Denise Lofts wants to see what she can take home to her classroom in Ulladulla on the country's southeast coast.
I'm actually really curious around the way in which they develop such great standards. What do they actually do in classrooms? And of course, how do they leverage technology?
This trip is part of a prize the teachers have won for showing innovation in learning in their own Australian schools. Their first stop is the Nan Chau Primary School. PSLE preparation is in full swing and the pressure is palpable.
So, who's doing your PowerPoint?
Denise and the teachers are observing a science class with close to 40 students getting ready for their big exams.
This is what we have done last lesson, okay?
Every student has a device on their desk and are all connected to a special system run by the school.
It's interesting seeing so many kids with their own phones on the table. We're not really used to that, are we?
Definitely not in primary school.
Now, click the start button. This is individual, not group again.
And I notice now that the teacher's talking, the kids have turned their devices around to face the front of the room.
Yeah, and I observe that as a really fantastic tactic for engagement, so that the students are well tuned into the teacher and they're all listening to her. No one's on a device while she's speaking.
With our cameras in the room, I'm sure these students are on their best behaviour today. But we're told students in general show a great deal of respect for their teachers. They show a desire to learn, and there are not many disruptions. And this respect for teachers is seen across the social spectrum. Only applicants from the top 30% of graduates are accepted into a teaching degree. It pays well and is considered an elite role, on par with a profession in management or accounting.
Here in Singapore, we're talking about the top 30% of graduates that become teachers. So that's very different.
Oh, actually, that was, it was interesting when we started talking when we first arrived. You know, they said the pay is this and you get the bonuses. By having spent time in the schools, they're very hardworking and teachers are very much appreciated. Their profile within the community is high. Wouldn't that be great in our own country if that was the desire, like that we were making the choices that, yes, you get to take the top 30%.
Denise is impressed by the well-resourced classrooms and quality teaching staff. But she has concerns about the high-pressure exams at such a young age.
In my research, high-stakes testing is of concern. Often it's just a way of measuring, and it's really a long way away from learning and from improving. And I see that these, they're preparing for these tests that happen at the end of primary school, for them then to choose a path beyond into secondary school. I'm not sure how that would work in our system, and I believe that must put a lot of pressure on the schools, on the teachers, and on the principals.
For Charmaine, the relentless pressure to succeed in the PSLEs had devastating consequences.
My name is Charmaine. I'm 17 this year. So school was something I struggled with a lot, and something I've struggled with since I was like super duper young. I think it's just the kind of environment that you're in. Too much pressure.
Even though Charmaine made it into the top academic stream, she says she struggled to keep up.
I kind of developed a fear of failure, like a really, really intense one.
So it sounds like it didn't bring the best out of you.
Yes, it did not bring the best out of me. So I was diagnosed with depression and anxiety. I missed a lot of school, and most of the time I spent laying on my table, not listening, or crying, maybe in the toilet hiding. I think it got really, really low when I felt like I would never have a future ever again.
In 2018 alone, the Samaritans of Singapore, the country's leading mental health NGO, saw a 56% rise in young people asking for help.
This is Janice.
Hello, lovely to meet you.
Today, with the support of her mum, Charmaine is doing much better. She's a student at a polytechnic academy and believes that doing well academically shouldn't come at a cost.
Thank you. It's such a lovely place you've got here.
I think that even though we are a leader in education, I think that we can do a lot better. And I think relieving the pressure on children does not mean that we will necessarily lose that position. In fact, it might just further cement us in that spot, in that number one spot.
So is there a wider conversation happening around mental health for school kids?
I think that there has been more awareness recently. I'm really, really thankful for that. We are slowly but surely normalizing it, and I think that with my generation, a lot will change for the better.
Do you feel like you've got your little girl back?
Yes, very much. And I'm very thankful.
Maybe a little bit too much.
Singapore is coming to realise that even though it's number one, there's still room for improvement. Recently, the government announced some changes to the streaming system.
28 secondary schools will start piloting full subject-based banding from next year.
Instead of sending 12-year-olds into education streams based on their PSLE results, secondary students will be able to choose from a mix of subjects at different levels of difficulty based on their changing abilities.
Every school is a good school, and now let's make every class a good class.
But for Ishan, exams are looming. The changes to Singapore's streaming won't happen in time to spare him from sitting his PSLEs. He's up to his ears in study at just age 12.
Put it this way, a lot of kids have a lot of free time in comparison to you, so they do a lot of things outdoors. They might do soccer or gymnastics. How would you feel about doing more of that stuff?
I feel that if we have enough time to finish all the homework that we are supposed to do in class, I think it's acceptable that we can have a little bit more free time during the day and play with our friends too and spend time with our family.
We would want to give our children many opportunities to be successful, and we have to balance that between pushing them, monitoring their stress level, and knowing when to let go. So we want to stress on responsibility, on being hardworking, diligence. Yeah, because I believe that these are the values that will bring our children far in life. Yeah, it's not just the academic results.